So this is where I'll get on to why it's actually why people got to stop. The same way that people have to stop fearing, the government finding out who you are. Like, I don't care. My name's on a whiteboard. They know where I live. Believe me, you guys have seen my paperwork. If they don't know where I live to come and get me or shoot me or throw me in jail, then they're never going to find out, right? You got to stop fearing them, right? And in order to stop fearing them, you got to stop fearing this name as well. And I'm going to get into the reason why, because you can actually turn it around and find out, right? You got to stop fearing them, right? In order to stop fearing them, you got to stop find out, right? You got to stop fearing them, right? And in order to stop fearing them, you got to stop me or throw me in jail, then they're never going to find out, right? You got to stop fearing them, right? And in order to stop fearing them, you got to stop fearing this name as well. And I'm going to get into the reason why, because you can actually turn it around to your advantage at that point. And that's what we're going to get into, which is the biggest point of everything I'm ever going to make, and that might even have to wait for other days, is the issue of liability. You don't care what name they're calling you. I don't care what name they're calling me. It all comes down to liability. Who's assuming liability for the claims being made, right? And then we get into the other forms of law, which is the contract. Where's the contract? Who's compelling me to perform in this contract? I don't care what you're calling me. But you got to provide the evidence that I've been compelled to perform in this name in a contract somewhere. Call me whatever you want, really, because ultimately my name is just 3 letters long, man. Anything after that is just a construct. It's a fiction. Everything after that is a fiction. Whether it's whether it's Dean, all capital Dean, all capital only Clifford, those are all constructs. They're just different versions of me for different purposes. And we can't be scared of any of them. We just got to learn how to master them all, which we can do because we're men. We're full unlimited liability. We create our own destinies. We do whatever we want. We take control of things. We're full liability. And you got to learn to actually just to start to pilot this stuff and use it. And say, yeah, you got that, yeah, you got it right, that's me. What's it to you? Right? Instead of, no, that's not my name. I'm not a person. Right? You can use the legal, you can use the argument, well, do you want the legal person or do you want the man? Right? The only reason that works is because what you've done now is you've differentiated the fact that there is a difference between the two names. That also, but even that could be, well, you're all just one same party. But the whole point is once you basically separate separate the name. So now there's, you separated this name from that name. Now there's 2 of us, and they only want that name. And that name is now floating out there because you're saying, well, I'm over here, I'm the man, and the legal name is right here. You're distancing yourself from it, but you're not denying that it's you in some capacity, because you can still act in that capacity. And that's why you've heard people go to court and make the argument, well, which capacity do you want me here in? Do you want me here in the capacity of the man, or do you want me here in the capacity of the driver? According to the Highway Traffic Act, do you want me here in the capacity of this, capacity of that, capacity, I could be anything you want me to be. Which hat do you want me to wear? Exactly. Because that's all that name is it's a presumption, it's just a broad, it's just something, just to get you there. And then hoping you're not going to know how to make the proper, not arguments, but navigate yourself through the court properly. And that is, well, what binds me to that. You guys are calling me this. What is that bound to? Where's the contract? What obligations am I bound to perform in that? Did I agree to it? Was there valuable consideration? What was I supposed to perform? Was I aware of all and that's the rules of contract. Then we get into that kind of stuff, right? So you got to be able to know how to get into that kind of stuff. And we'll get into all that kind of stuff later, but then there's, the talking to the judges, and the judges ordering you around, ordering the sheriffs and stuff like that, that's all. But the big problem was we wanted to address what the name was. And I don't even tackle the problem of trying to come up with what that name is, because again, that's all it is, it's a presumption. It's presumption that you are that. As presumption, there's a contractual obligation. It's presumption that you're operating in some capacity, and then you just have to dismantle the presumption at that point, because that's what the courts operate on, is presumptions, right? So to go further from there, I guess, I didn't really have much in the way of a template to work on tonight with this, but okay, where to go from there would be why we're in the problem we're in, and I was speaking with people about this a couple years ago, and it finally sank in about a year and a half ago when we got into the whole trust law issue. and why, and the different law forms. And why trust law? Because you've got all these different levels of law that just have different authorities, different jurisdictions, and different levels of force. And you've got obviously statutory law, which is the lowest inferior form of law there is on the planet, right? It's like, it's public servant codes is what I call it, right? If you're a trash collector, it's just, well, it's there's regulations and all sorts of different forms of law, but statutory law itself is the lowest form of law. It's, yeah. Why do they call it public? Well, that's any form of law, but why do they call them public servants? Right? They're servants. Those are the slaves of society, right? They're supposed to serve everybody. They're the public servants. So statutes are actually public servant codes. It's the Criminal Code of Canada. It only applies to people that work for the government, agents of government, and they're all public servants. She's not. Well, hang on. We can get into the argument of wish for majesty. I could rattle off about 8 right now. Right? So, yeah, we're not even going to get into what wish for majesty or what her majesty is or whether she's a servant or whether she isn't a servant. We're all servants of God. Every single one of us. Period. Beyond that, doesn't matter. But that's the highest now, okay?
Sorry if I have to interject. I have to interject right now.
Yep.
We're all students of Earth.
Okay. I wouldn't agree with that. But we won't get into that right now. So why are we in the mess that we're in? And it's easy to see what happens, and we all know about the Catholic Church and the mystery schools and how they used to encode everything, and they would phrase things in different words to hide technology and theories and our rights and the whole 9 yards. And it really struck me when I read a couple of books, and one in particular was Ellen White, The Great Controversy. I read that. And I read a couple other books on religion, and everything for some reason came back to the Holy Trinity. And I've broached this topic before at some of our meetings, and that's where we start to get into trust law, which is what the Holy Trinity is. And that's why the Holy Trinity is so important, because trust law requires this 3-party contract. That is trust law, right? And that's what the Holy Trinity is. And the Catholic Church likes to call it what the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? So we got the Father. We got the Son, Holy Ghost, back to the Father. So, it just a couple of things hit me in the last couple of years. I was just sitting around, I was just reading parts of the Bible, and I got thinking about it, reading some definitions in Black's Law Dictionary. Kind of dorky like that. Saturday afternoon, I'll be sitting at my beach house, and I'll read a definition of Black's Law Dictionary just for fun, and I'll be like, oh, I don't know that word, so I'll look up that one. And I'll find a word in that definition I don't know, so I'll look up that word. And I'll just spend 6 hours doing that. And I got through that, and I do the same thing in Boogie's Law Dictionary. Yeah, nerd. Yeah, and this may even be common knowledge for a lot of people out there in the movement. I don't know if people really understand what it is, but, I mean, the Bible is God's last will and testament. And people never really think about that, about what it is, about what a testament is. And if you look up the definition of the word testament, testament is something left by the testator in a will. Like your last will and testament. So you look at, okay, well, it's the last testament of God, or whatever, the God's testament. It's the last will and testament of God is what that turns out to be, where if you look in the Holy Trinity and you start to realize that what we got here is trust law going on, is the Father, who is God, is the testator. And he's also the grantor. So he created man. He did his whatever 7 days. Okay, I'm not going to get into what that actually means. It doesn't matter. It's all encoded. It's all riddles. He came along. He created the planets. He created us. Whatever you want to believe that means is up to you. It really doesn't matter. So he created us.